Hello and welcome to Confused with me, Julian Foote from Leaf Logic, and Mona from 108 Marketizer. Today we are looking at brand. Now, Mona, growing up, brand was something you put on a cow, but in modern terms, what is it?
No, that's such an interesting question, isn't it? And one that really doesn't get asked very often. So, what is a brand? What I've seen in my experience, it can mean entirely different things to a lot of people. And it's one of those words that's really commonly used, but not very clearly understood, isn't it?
It's used and abused, I think, is the...
Exactly right.
What is the essence of it in your view? What is it what does brand mean in modern marketing terms?
So if we look back, traditionally brand was really a way of identifying a service or a business. Back in the old days, it was more of a trademark, a logo, and that's about it. But now, when you look at it now, marketing's changed. The way we do business has changed. And that word brand has also kind of grown and evolved, and that's changed. So to me, it's this all inclusive connection that it's that perception that you have with the services or the products that you use in your life. So one example that comes to mind right now is look at Nike. It's not about the shoes. It's about that active lifestyle. So yeah. I think it's the meaning of the word has shifted. It's evolved into this subtle perception about a service. And a perception that can be actually shaped by emotions. It's also not just fixed at any given time. It's kind of growing, evolving, and it's based on the user who's interacting with any aspect of that service. So for me, it's more like a narrative. It's a story, and it's not just something that's fixed in a logo or a color or a name of a business. It's a moving, intangible perception.
Yeah, it's interesting. Another example would be, I guess, Virgin, that I remember. I'm old enough to remember when it just applied to music from Mike Oldfield. And gradually the Virgin brand has been extended out to cover telephony, trains, everything, airplanes that Richard Branson touches in a way. And it still has that brand about it that is, you sort of maverick, left field that gives you as you say, it's sort of an emotional feeling that if you're a Virgin Trains customer in the UK, maybe anger, but it has that, it still has that cachet of Branson behind it, which sort of gives it that sort of rock and roll feeling, and particularly the way that they're pushing the brand into space as well. It's extending it, but that's a very flexible brand. Now, if we say, brands now have this multifaceted feeling, how would that apply when you're looking at a service rather than a physical object? How does a brand work when you're talking about a professional services firm?
Yeah. And I think one example there, I would like to start with the example because it kind of makes the point really clear, is like, for example, if I need to search something on the web, I never say I'm going to go on the web and search it. Anybody and everybody always just say, I'll Google it. Just Google it. You'll find the answer. It's or for example, this is my favorite one. Like I'm binge watching Netflix. It's like, it's never said I'm watching the movies on this subscription channel. So you can actually see that these brands or these service brands have kind of merged with their function. It's just they're kind of one with that. There's just that strong connection emotionally in the user's mind. And not only that, but it's kind of extended physically also in the way they provide those services. Google's so easy. Like you just search, it's there. I think brand for the services sector is really an aura around, kind of an all-embracing aura that touches every aspect of their business and how that extends to the user and how that carries on in the user's mind as well. For service sector firms, they really need to look at it as part move away from that transactional day-to-day
Hmm.
relationship with their clients, because they kind of get stuck and they focus just on that. But brand really doesn't have a beginning and end, and it doesn't. It's just the brand is the why, the what, the how, the where. It's everything. But I think that professional firms have kind of just stayed with that initial idea of a brand. It's that color, the unique business name, logo, and now because of digital, they might have added website to their inverted commas brand, and that's it.
So they're not thinking of the interface between them and their customers. They're not thinking about how that should work. Offering a legal service or an accounting service or a property service. Why would they need to think about the brand in that way?
Look, I think it's really clear. We live in a world where everything is now, it's no longer simple. It's no longer one-to-one based on where you're located. Um, you are kind of connected globally at any given point in time, and as a service sector business, you really need to think a bit wider in terms of your traditional ways of marketing. So, as a brand, it really needs to be visible as a function, and that's why I think the need to change, not necessarily change the way you do business. It's the perception that you change about your purpose as to why you exist, what kind of problem that you're solving. So that needs to change, and that's when the brand will change, and that's when the marketing messages will change.
Do you think it's because of the shift between partnership and corporate life within the professional services now? So, for example, it used to be about the individual. These pillars of society would have the owner's names attached to them, so it would be foot, leg, and hand chartered surveyors. That's what would be over the door. Now you're looking at it more as these businesses are moving towards having a single logo or name and calling it, property, full stop. But when you come to realize the value in that business, what are you selling? You're really selling the brand and the loyalty and your customers towards that brand, rather than it being an individual now, because these firms have progressed. The original partners are history. Is it a different organization that they're creating now, and therefore need to look at it differently?
Absolutely right. I think it's that it's no longer attached to one individual, or, well, some questions. In some cases, it might be. So there are Apple and Steve Jobs and things like that. But there are other brands that have actually outgrown that individual persona who actually came in and set it up, because they've been able to transfer it into the way they do business. So the brand is bigger. It's more of a, it's like the goodwill. It's more bigger than what it initially started. And it is bigger because the founder or the person or the partner or whoever's in there has kind of let the business have a personality of its own. And that's what it is. It's no longer this tangible thing. It's more of a subtle perception that is kind of come into organically. It's organically coming into the user's mind, but I think the business is running it with a strategy to form it based on how they're filling a gap in the market, or based on what solutions they're providing to their clients and how they connect at every aspect of their service delivery. So it's formed with an intention, but it has a life of its own.
So it comes back to that issue of some firms are still approaching this from a partnership angle, the old professional angle of we're three-body Pearson and Bloom. We're not some sort of marketing person. Whereas now you look at it and you say, well, now you're PBB. You now have to look at that as a different entity, because PBB has a life of its own as a business that you need to nurture, and you need to think about what is that entity. You're not just soothing the ego of the senior partners. You're now looking at this as a corporate entity that has a life, no matter who's in it. That's where the value of the business is. what are the outcomes? What are the things that people should be looking for, and what are the benefits of actually looking at your business as a brand?
Yeah, exactly right. Now, in terms of brand, the first thing that I really want to point out here is that approach to marketing and brand has to change in the minds of these professional firms or the people who are working or running in it, is because brand is no longer, it's like a growth creator. It's no longer a cost aspect of it. It's no longer the cost center. So I think the first thing they need to really think is invest in that brand as an investment. And even if you take the literal meaning of the word, investment is something that's really used to create future wealth. I mean, we all know that, and even from a financial perspective, it's an asset that is purchased today, and we know that if we look after that asset, that it kind of bring either future income or profit when we sell it. So that aspect of investment has to be applied to marketing and brand, that you're investing in your business, you're investing in your brand. And really, once a professional firm is able to look at it from an investment point of view, then they really start investing in those long-term relationships with their clients, with their business. They start thinking not only just project or just only a couple of short-term goals. They start thinking, what do we need to do to be relevant to our client? How do we minimize risk? And that starts to weave the base, the foundation of every decision around brand. Then these brands, I've also seen that they become more trustworthy. They have this visible credibility. It's just that the clients and their interaction with their clients and the services that they provide, they've been able to provide additional value over a period of time. And you can see if somebody's looking at the financial books, you can see the incremental revenue that is coming in because they've grown and grown and grown because they've invested in that aspect. It's not about just delivering the services and leaving it there. They've actually taken it and growing. So I think it opens up the future opportunities. Marketing your brand really pushes you to change. It really helps you to actually focus on what's really important in the long term. So that is another thing that is another outcome of thinking of brand as an investment. And also, I mean, I can go on and on about this, but I think one more thing that really helps if you think of your brand is you really it gives you that competitive advantage. I mean, there are so many, we did talk about this earlier, we're in a complex world. It's no longer one-to-one. There are so many other businesses out there or other services out there who are in the market. So how does a client or how does a user choose who do I go with? And suddenly, if your brand has been out there educating and kind of building that story and that narrative, people kind of associate with that emotion. They kind of associate with that word of what you do. So your services are more valuable because the clients kind of value, because it solves their problem really well. You are understood well in the market, and that gives you a competitive advantage. So those are some of the outcomes in a nutshell that can actually help your business or your brand to get started.
I think absolutely. And from my own experience, I remember talking to a client of mine who was in construction, and we were talking about the fact that ultimately I said to him, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to sell the business. And I said to him, well, you have to look at this as to, when it comes to you selling the business, are you selling a few staff, a couple of trucks, and a shovel, or are you selling the brand? Because at the end of the day, the value is in the company and what it encapsulates. You have the brand is something tangible. The business is something tangible that you sell or that has value, as you say, with the investment.
Yep.
So we'll be talking about marketing in future episodes as well. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mona, for that insight. And yes, listen in to next time on Confused.